How a two-cycle works. I'm going to be taking this two-cycle and messing around with it and trying to convert it to a small steam engine. I'm on this whole, self-sufficiency, power, making my own electricity, that whole thing. I live in a wooded area, so I know short supply of fuel to power a steam engine. So I figured before I get into my big project, which may or may not make it on YouTube, probably will if I can ever get the flywheel off of it. It's a bigger engine, but I'm still working on tearing that apart and getting that ready and cleaning it and getting it prepped. I figured let's figure this out first on a small engine. So this is my or how a two-cycle works, what the principle is on a two-cycle. So let's get into it. You have your spark plug here, right? Pretty simple. For those of you who've never seen a spark plug before, this is what a spark plug looks like. This is it. This is a spark plug. Right there. That little tip. That is where your spark happens. You have a positive side, which is that little spike in the center there. That is your positive terminal right in the middle. And then that arced piece right here, that arcs over, that's your negative end. As you can see, it's attached to the screws, which is grounded out on the motor. So this is your positive terminal, which is coated in ceramic. It's got a ceramic coating so it doesn't touch the negative terminal. It's insulation basically. So then that gets screwed into here, into this part of the engine, which looks like that. Cool. Just a hole on top of the engine, and top of the piston. This is your cylinder's in here. This is basically your cylinder. So that would go in, screws in. Occasionally you may or may not have spacers. It depends on the engine. I know Briggs and Stratton sometimes does that. So that gets screwed in there. Then you have this cap. This cap here has a contact on it. It's kind of a screw contact. I don't know if you can really see that from there. Alright, so there. Alright, yeah, you can really kind of see that now. A little bit better. It's kind of like a screw type thing. And then that goes on top of here. It'll actually click. You'll hear some clicking. This magneto has a magnet in it. That magnet has a switch. And this will actually amplify. This is part of your magnet right here. Let me get my hand out of the way here. This little arc is actually part of the magnet mechanism, and inside here it's like a capacitor essentially. And then so every time that this makes a revolution, I'm trying to get a good. There's these magnets right in here. I don't know if you can see them or not. There's those two little magnets. When those pass through your magneto, right there. When it does that, there's some resistance, and there's a click. When that clicks, every time that passes, this gets discharged. Okay? So when that capacitor discharges, it's going to discharge all that electricity. It basically uses, I think it uses like friction or something like that. I'm not entirely sure how the magneto works. But then that capacitor stores up the energy, and then it is discharged once those magnets hit. It's then discharged into the wire, into here, and amplified by there's an amplifier in here, which amplifies the current, which sends a spark across the spark plug here. It'll send a spark across that. So that's connected. Boom, it sparks. So when this turns and hits there, that is your piston. Your piston is fully up. Actually, it's not fully up. I shouldn't say that. That's about fully up. There's actually a little bit of downward movement on the piston head. Not much, but just enough. And then it sparks and pushes the thing around. So, okay. So that's how the whole ignition process happens, right? Well, how does the fuel actually get there? Okay, the fuel actually gets there by this. This is your gas tank, right? Pretty simple. Then you have this little bubble. What this does is it's a charging bubble, essentially. That bad boy right there. That charging bubble, you're going to want to press that in. I don't know, maybe. It usually will say on the engine or inside the manual. You push that, and what that does, and the hose just fell off, that charging bubble does is that takes and pushes air through this line and into the gas tank, and it pressurizes the gas tank. And then you have a secondary line coming in here into the mixer chamber. The mixer chamber then puts it in here into your, now this is into your carburetor. This here is your choke adjustment. So you have full choke, half, and full open. So wide out, basically. This is wide out. Now, so full choke means that when your fuel, you're pumping this, you're pumping this, you're pumping this, right? Okay, you start it, it's running. It's going to run really fast. So it's pumping, you're getting a lot of fuel and not a lot of air. Half choke, you have some air, some fuel, mostly air, and some fuel. Okay, so you have that. That's to prep the engine. Once you have or to warm up the engine. Once the engine's warmed up, you have it on full or half, depending on how the engine works. This over here, this mechanism right in here, this, you can see that, I'm trying to get a good view. This is your throttle. That then controls this, or a valve. So, no throttle at all. You're not getting any fuel into it. Half, this is about half throttle. Full throttle, wide open, fuel's just pouring in there. Along with an open choke, you're getting a good equal mixture. So these are fuel adjustments. These usually come prepped from the factory. You don't need to mess with them. Just don't touch them. I mean, unless you're really into it. But yeah, so that's how a carburetor works. It basically mixes the fuel and air. It's a fuel air mixer. I mean, that's what a carburetor is. So, now that that's out of the way, so we know how the fuel gets in the engine. We know how the engine sparks to ignite the fuel. So now then, we're going to get to the actual engine. This is where your carburetor actually mounts to. Okay, so as the cylinder, this is a better analogy right from here. So as the cylinder is going to spin, let's get it to top center here. Alright, so it's at top center. Now how it actually pulls in the fuel, because it actually creates a vacuum, so it actually is going to pull in the fuel, is when it's down, when it fires, so it's going to go bang, it's going to fire, so it gets down here, but now when it goes up, when it goes on its upward stroke, it's creating what we call a vacuum. So that vacuum, it's then going to suck that in, so now that it's at the top, that's got a huge vacuum in it. That vacuum then opens up the cylinder. See, there it is. Goes up, creates the vacuum, boom, sucks in fuel. So it sucks in all the fuel and then comes back down. When it comes down, let's go here. When it comes down, it actually creates a pressure. So you have a vacuum and a pressure system. So it's compression, I should say. So it's compressing it. When it gets down to there, that compression then shoots it up into the cylinder. And that's how that works. So it actually gets shot up into there, into this hole right in here. So it gets pushed into this hole into the actual cylinder. And that's how it actually gets the fuel up in there. So you've got it coming. So it fires, comes up, it's creating a vacuum. So the vacuum's coming, it gets there, boom, it sucks everything in, then it's shut off. Now the cylinder's coming down, it creates compression, it compresses it. Now at the bottom, it gets sucked into there, and then it gets cut off, and then it gets compressed inside the cylinder now, as it's creating a vacuum to suck in the next amount of fuel. So then now it's coming up, Okay, so now that it's at top center, boom, it gets sparked, and the whole thing starts all over again. And that is how the whole 2-cycle works, essentially. So, and then so the fuel comes in, it gets sucked in, then it gets compressed. It gets compressed, it shoots into here, then that, let's do it up top. So then it gets shot into here, right? So now it's in here, spark happens, boom, it ignites, it comes down, and then it gets shot out the exhaust port as exhaust. So, and then it starts all over again. And the system just, the wheels on the bus go round and round. And that is how your 2-cycle is going to work.